Welcome also from my side to the TechTalk today. Yeah, you already heard a few words about me. I'm now signed 7 years at Configit, and we will today look into how you can improve your sales productivity and your configuration user experience by the use of our virtual tabulation technology. From agenda point of view, we first look into a kind of example how typical runtime-based configuration engines guide the user through the configuration, or if not. And then we will look into different features, how our VT technology can improve this behavior, and you can give even more user guidance to your end users on website, web shops, CPQ solutions. We also will talk about making the user aware of the different functionalities, and also shortly address the topic of mobile and offline usage of configuration. So let's start in the first point. A typical runtime-based behavior. And I listed here a few points which typically bothers users when using configuration, typical configurators. And one is, of course, when you are forced to go through a wizard where no wizard is needed, where it's just used to get around some negative behavior of the configuration engine. Also, dead ends are quite often annoying. If you get stuck somewhere doing the configuration and you don't find a way out of the invalid configuration, it can be quite time consuming, resetting your configuration, starting from scratch. So that can be also very cumbersome. And also sometimes the features which are no longer available are hidden in the configurator. So the user does not know that these functionalities are there at a certain point in time. And of course, it might give the user the feeling of this functionality is not there, but it's just not there because of a specific functionality of a specific selection you have done before. And these are different areas where the runtime configuration very often is not very good in. And I've built a small example. So we will look today into a car configuration. We have different typical characteristics of a car configuration. And in the first step, we will look into a model created with a runtime-based engine. So all the rules are executed while I'm selecting my features and functions. And later on, we will see the same configuration just compiled with our VT technology. So let's first look into this example executed by a runtime-based engine. And as mentioned, it's a car configuration. It's a typical configuration values we expect from a car configuration. And one problem is often that you can't go through such a configuration in any order. So typically you have to go top down through it. And if you don't do that, if you go in different orders through the configuration engine often can't guide you very well. So at a certain point in time, it looks like something is available, you're selecting it, but you get into a dead end invalid configuration. Very often these configuration engines are not really good in guide you out of that. So what is needed to deselect to get these functionalities? And because of that, very often in the configurator, a wizard is applied so that you are forced to go through a specific order through the configuration, like this one here. So it means you only can select now top down the configuration step by step to avoid that you get into a dead end of something which is no longer available. And the problem on that is that what is not available is now hidden. So to avoid that you select something and get into an invalid configuration, but it also makes a feeling that certain functionalities are no longer available or in general not available. That's of course a bit bad because it might give a wrong impression that you are not able to deliver this functionality or feature. So these are some typical things maybe you also know from your configurator or other configurator you have used where a runtime-based configuration engine is not really good in guiding the user through the configuration. And now let's look into how our VT technology can improve on that. So, and the great thing on this is it is kind of out of the box functionality. So you don't need to model anything extra. You don't need to put extra effort into it. You just get it out of the precompiled solution space of our VT technology. And you just need to use it and bring it, make it available in the front end. And today we will look into some specific functionalities. So the first one is making the meta information of the configuration engine available for the user to give some feedback on why something is selected, what is the valid domain, and so on. We will look into order independent configuration so that you really can go through in any order through the configuration and start with the most important selection first. We look into conflict solving and how different solving strategies can be applied. We look into exclusion of features, not just selecting features, also exclude specific features, and also into our solution space explorer, how that can be used to improve user guidance. If you want to learn more about our VT technology, you find some information on our website and also in some recorded tech talks we have done until today. So there are also more details about our VT technology and how exactly it works. So let's go into the first topic, the metadata of the configuration engine. So when you send a request to the configuration engine, it not only returns the variables and which one are selectable and which one no longer selectable, it also returns a couple of meta information. One meta information is, for example, the assignment reason. So is that a selection a user has done? Is that a selection default was applied? Or is it something a rule has selected because there's no other choice left? Also, which is quite nice, is we also return the valid domain of a numeric characteristic. So the configuration engine knows exactly which domains are still valid and which domains are running into a conflict and will create a conflict solving. But you also can use the meta information to create some kind of deltas between the previous and the new selection to really give a list of what has changed between the two selections you have done. So let's have a look into that. And this one here is the same model with the same rules, but this time created with our VT technology. And you can see here on the numbers of seats, it already gives you an information about what is the valid numbers you can enter here. And because of that, you can directly do some client-side validation, so you don't need to ask the configuration engine if certain entered values are valid. And you also can see that it now splits into valid and invalid domains. So the configuration engine gives you the right feedback to do here also some client-side validations. And also it gives you the information if certain selections are just selected by the rule engine. So you really can see at the end, is it something I have selected? Is it something the default was applied? Or is it something the rule has selected because there's no other choice left? So that way also a user gets a nice overview why certain elements are selected. If you go to the next one, it's the order independent. And I'm pretty sure if I would ask all attendees here, what is the most important feature for you on a car? I will get a lot of different answers. And I have listed here a couple of them. So some of you of us have families, so we need a large car to get, for example, 5 people into. Some of us have preferences for a specific car shape, like an SUV. Some would like to go very fast and would like to have a large-sized motor, and so on and so on. Some might have needs for security, audio systems, assistance systems, and so on. So we all are different and we all have different preferences. If we are forced to go top-down through a configuration, it can happen that the most important feature for us is not visible or not available to select when we reach it. So it's really important to give users the capability to go in any order through the configuration so that they can start with the most important first and then step by step go to the one which are less important. And we can see that now in an example, again, starting on the low level as I did in the first step, but you directly can see the VT technology is guiding you through and gives you direct feedback what is available and what is not available. And independent on in which order you go through, it knows on all values what is available and what not. Here you can see the orange color is only available for the sports car, so it automatically applies these functionalities. So really avoid through the guidance of the configuration engine that I get into any dead end because I select something and then the configuration engine says, hey, sorry, that's not longer available. So here you can go through the configuration in any order you want. And it's really important that a user can start with the most important feature first and then step by step select the other one which are left and get to the most boring for him as last. And this selection order will be also very important when we talk about conflict solving in a minute. It happens in any case that in a certain point in time you have done 5 or 10 or maybe even more selections in a configurator, and then you see something which attracts your attention. Oh, that's a nice feature. I would like to have that. Unfortunately, it is no longer available based on your previous selections. And you would like to know, hey, what of my previous selection I have to give up on to get this feature? Because it's really nice. I want to have that one. And in this moment, the conflict solving comes into place. So the engine has to help you to get out of this conflict. And the truth is, if you are here in a valid domain and you're now selecting something which is no longer available based on your previous selections, there might be multiple ways how you can get to this point. So sometimes there is just one way how you can solve it, but very often there are also multiple ways how you can solve it. And also this is something our configuration engine can help you on. So we not only solve it somehow, we also can help you to understand and influence how the conflict will be solved. And to do that, we have solving strategies. And I have listed here the one we have out of the box. So we have, for example, the solving strategy last then first. So if that is the selection order, so I have selected these ones and these, and last one was an invalid selection I have done. The priority will be applied that the last one I have selected is now the most important, and then the first one and so on I have selected are the other priorities. So it tries to solve the conflict in a way that this one will be kept, this one will be kept, and it tries to solve it by removing some of the low priority if possible. The second strategy is to remove as less as possible. So it keeps the last one, that's the most important now. And from the previous selections, it tries to remove as less as possible. So if there is a way to solve it with removing 2 of my assignments and a way to solve it with removing 3 of my assignments, it will pick the one with the 2. It could be that in these 2 is one of my most important, but it tries to minimize the impact on my previous selections. Another strategy is more or less the opposite of the first one, so the last and then to the first. So it really goes in the opposite direction of my selections by solving the conflict. And these are 3 kind of standard out of the box ways to solve it. You can just pick and tell the configuration engine, I would like to try to solve it in this way. But if none of these are okay for you, or you would like to have a very undefined priority, there is also a 4th one. You can say for each of your assignments, you can give a priority and you can create an own priority. So you could, by drag and drop or somehow, define the order of your assignments and the priority of it. And then the configuration engine will try to solve it by removing the low priority first before the high priority will be removed. So that way you can really give in a very own specific way to solve the conflict. And the last one we have is phases. So sometimes you would like to kind of lock out certain characteristics from the conflict solving. So for example, the market. If I buy a car and I say I have to register it in Germany, it applies, of course, the German rules, which is needed to drive a car on the German streets. But it would be worse if the configuration engine says, hey, you can get this feature if you register your car in the Netherlands, or if you register your car in Denmark. I mean, that I can't do that. I have to register it in Germany, so it's no way to get to that. So with phases and scopes, we really can lock out certain elements from the conflict solving so that it will be only solved on the one which makes sense to remove or change. And let's have a look into an example. So here again, our compiled car model. We have already done a couple of selections here, and we will now go in and select something which is no longer available. And let's say on the horsepower, we would like to have 200 horsepower. And this one is not available for the selection we have done. And this engine tells us, okay, if you want to get that one, you have to get rid of the 19-inch wheels and the 5 numbers of doors. And here you can see the strategy. And if I change the strategy, it gives me another suggestion. Hey, you could also remove the massage seats and the 19-inch wheels. Or I say, hey, try to keep the massage seats, try to solve it somehow different, and then it's back to the one we have seen before. So the 19-inch wheels and the 5 numbers of doors. So that way, the configuration engine can help you to play around with different ways to solve it and help you to understand how your conflict can be solved here. So we really know all the possible ways how you can solve it, and this way you can offer your user a smart way to figure out what is the best way for a specific user to get out of that. And this try to keep this functionality, this applies by priority, a very high priority to the selection one, to the one you have clicked on, and then it tries to solve it with keeping this one, as long as it is possible, of course. So that way you can see the engine is really helping you to get out of such a conflict and helps you to get these new feature now you get attracted by. Another nice functionality is exclusion of features. So the most configurable, more or less all configurators I have seen so far, they are offering capabilities to say, I would like to have this feature. But sometimes you would like to say, I definitely don't want to get this feature. Whatever it will be selected, I don't want this one. So when we think, for example, on a car again, and we talk about the color of a car, very often configurator offering us 20 colors for a car. I'm pretty sure the half of them are not interesting for us. So different half of them, of course, for every one of us, but the half of them, for example, I don't like a green car, for example, or a red car. I would prefer to take a black one. The problem is I can't tell that typically configurators that specific options are not interesting for me. But with exclusion, I can do that. And the nice thing is I get full user guidance still, even when I exclude certain features. Because when we look again into our solution space, so each point here is a valid solution I can get. And I now exclude, certain elements. The configuration engines now, which of the other solutions are also removed because they are directly bounded to this feature. So let's say you only can get autonomous driving for a black car. And if I say I don't want a black car, it also knows, okay, autonomous driving is no longer available. So that way the engine can guide you through the configuration, even when you say certain elements are not interesting for you. And the nice thing is really it improves your user guidance here, because typically we leave these elements empty and come back to them later on with the hope the preferred options are still available. But in worst case, it ends up in a configuration where just green and red would be selectable in a color. And yeah, that's not the colors I would prefer. So yeah, that would be worse. And then I have to play around how to get these colors, get the other colors again. And that's what we see here for the body type, for example. So typically we don't want to have all the body types. There are some we like to get and some we definitely don't want to get. But typically we can't say that's the engine. So we keep it empty. We continue configuring the other elements. But in worst case, at a certain point in time, it says, hey, you only can get convertible body type, and it wasn't someone I preferred to have. So I can go in and filter my options and can say, okay, I'm only interested in a sedan, in a station wagon, and an SUV. All the other ones are not interesting for me. So I skip that. They are now orange listed here. You can directly see that the configuration engine already applies the left one. So LPG is no longer available for my my body types I have selected. Also, these horsepowers are no longer available for the one I have selected. So the configuration engine really tells me what is left when I exclude certain functionalities. Here you also can see on the seed type. And if I select something, also in the conflict solving, I will see, hey, here is a conflict with your filter. If you remove your filter, you can get this option. If you stay with the filter, then you can't get that option. So that way also the conflict solving works very well with exclusion of features. And that's really, really nice guidance here through the configuration. The key challenge, of course, is that many users don't expect to have these functionalities in the configurator. So if you are used to work since years with a runtime-based configurator, which has certain strange behavior, and you have learned how to avoid conflicts or dead ends, you typically apply that to all the configurators you work with to learn from it, to apply your experience to it. So it means if you switch to a VT technology, you also need to get your users, your salespeople, your partners, and so on into the functionalities, make them aware of, hey, this is the VT technology we are using. You can really go in any order through the configuration. You have conflict solving. You can exclude certain features and so on. So really make it make them aware of it so that they really can make most use of it. For anonymous, it's a bit more difficult. If you have your configuration in a web shop or a website, you typically don't know the people who are entering the configurator, but you also can give them a guided tour through your configurator. So make them, first time they enter your configurator, aware of what functionalities are available, what nice features you are offering in the configurator, because a simpler user can go through your configuration and find a specific product he's looking for. The more difficult it will feel when he goes to the competitor to find the same product by your competitor. So that's really an advantage. So let's say on your website, he needs 10 minutes to find the right one because the engine is guiding him through what is possible and available and solves the conflicts in case there happens some. And if the user gets stuck multiple times in the competitor configurator, in dead ends and tries to figure out how to get out of that and so on, and you might need an hour, the user experience will be way better in your configurator. And let's see how such a guided tour could look like. So this is just some front-end functionality, so that has less to do with the engine itself. But you can apply a guided tour through your configurator. Here in this case, it explains, hey, here you can make your selections. Here you have a filter functionality. Please click on that. Here you can filter which functionalities are available. So please select the one which are interesting for you. You can apply your filter, and then your filter will be listed here and applied to the configuration engine. So that way you can make users aware of certain functionalities they might not expect in a configurator, so that they really can make full use of all the cool stuff you have in the configurator. The last one is the solution space exploring. So now we have the full compiled solution space in our VT technology. And if you do a partial configuration, it might look like this. You have some still valid configurations, and there are some configurations no longer valid because you have already selected certain functionalities. And when we think about a product finder, very often you have a kind of table view where all the left configurations are shown. And you can select the one which are most interesting for you. You can easily compare them. So it's a typical configuration behavior for a component business. And the nice thing is you can now extract these left configurations and make these available in a table view. So it means you get all these left configurations. You can show it to your user in a table view in a product finder, and then the user can pick scroll through the lists and find the one which is most interesting. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about the solution space and what other functionalities it offers to you, there was a previous TechTalk I did, so it might be also interesting to look into that one. So let's have an example for the solution space exploring and how it can be used in a product finder type of configurator. Here we have a configurator a little bit more styled. It's using the SAP Fiori-like design. It's for an industrial temperature sensor, so a component. And it starts with the first entering questions about the industry, the environment, and the process location to pre-select the one which fits most to your requirements. And now you can see here a list of available products. They are extracted out of the valid solution space. So 360 are available here, 200 are currently shown. And you now can go in, scroll through the list. And if you don't find something, you have also a request button here for ETO requests, for example. But you also can go in and filter even more and select some options to get the list smaller. So now you can see it's 240, 200s are still displayed. And if you continue selecting certain elements, you can see how the list will be smaller and smaller. So we are now down to 60, entering also the pipe length for the temperature sensor, we are down to 10. And you also can see here now the different combinations which are available. And you also have here the conflict solving as seen before, just in a little bit different style here. So if you select the IP65, you can't use it longer in an explosion hazard environment. So you can keep with, you can stay with that, or you can go back to the previous selection you had and solve the conflict here. Yeah, and now you could select one of these and continue maybe with a more detailed configuration. So that's up to you how the specific configuration flow looks like. But here you can see it uses the conflict solving from before, the meta information, the solution space. And the nice one is all these functionalities are available also online and offline. So it feels sometimes like we have a lot of salespeople who have to sell in the desert. We still have some areas where we have bad internet connection, and Germany is, I think, one of these places, unfortunately. So there are sometimes a need to have also offline configuration available because there is no internet connection, the customer don't give you internet connection and so on. So it might be good to have it also offline. And all the functionalities we have looked on, you also have offline available because it's pre-compiled, it's very small. We can make it available on a mobile device and use it also there. So that you really can use the full power of OVT technology in any place, wherever you are, and later on synchronize it with your CPQ solution, with your CRM system, and so on. Yeah, that was the different features and functions I would like to highlight, which come out of the box of our configuration engine without any extra modeling effort. And you just need to pick them and use them in the configurator and make it available and the user aware of that these functionalities are available. Yeah, any questions so far? I think
we have a few, Heiko. Let's see here. Are these features only available in Configit applications, or can they be made available in other applications as well?
All these features we have seen is part of our core configuration engine, and we have an API. So we have, of course, standard applications from Configit, like a CPQ you can use, but we also can integrate that into any other applications like a web shop, a website, CPQ solution, homegrown solution, or from another vendor. So we are open here in an API, and you can use all these features in any application.
Great. Let's see. Can I add my own metadata to the configuration or just the standard metadata?
We have here focused on what comes out of the box without any extra effort. But we also have functionalities called a property you can add to different objects in the configuration to extend with custom meta information. For example, to guide the user to the most sustainable configuration, or give some hints or additional images or video links and so on. So there are capabilities to add custom metadata to the configuration.
Okay, great. I know we're a couple minutes over, but one more question. Can I add multiple exclusions or just one per configuration?
You can add as many exclusions you want. So it was an example with just one, but you can also add multiple one.